Good afternoon, Gibsonburg United Methodist Church. Pastor Nick here. On my second attempt, I had a problem with connection. I don't know what happened, but hopefully this will go through. So, attempt number 2. Yesterday, last morning, I was having a meeting with Max, Pastor Max, and Cleve Patton, our pianist. And during our meeting, a reference to Maslow's hierarchy of needs was brought up. I don't remember the context or how it was used, but if you're unfamiliar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs or the pyramid of needs, I'm going to give a kind of breakdown of what it is. So while I was at BG, I was studying psychology. I actually had to study this pyramid of needs a few times. And essentially it is a display of human motivation, why we do what we do. And he designed it with a pyramid, being that, with a pyramid structure, your bottom is the widest part, and it kind of goes up till a point. So with the bottom layer, you have your physiological needs. That's food, water, air, things to keep you as a human alive. Then the next step up is your safety. So that's clothing, that's shelter, just a sense of security. The next one is loving and belonging. Loving can be family and friend relationships, romantic relationships. Belonging is feeling that you're a part of a group or civilization. And then your next level up is esteem. So that's developing those character traits that you are, like your personality, having confidence, just being kind of an individual rather than a group. And then the final one is self-actualization. Self-actualization is really the best way I've heard of it explained is using your full potential is really what it comes down to, being the best that you are at being you, really. So understanding that we find ourselves, a lot of us find ourselves kind of demoted, essentially, in this hierarchy of needs. Those of us that are without a job, on unemployment, probably have gone down a level or two. Your basic needs are what you're focused on. Your security, your physiological. And I've read articles that are talking about there's a reason why we find ourselves more irritable. There's a reason why we find ourselves harder to handle just being amongst our family members. And it's because we don't have that energy to apply to the higher levels, because we're on the bottom, that we're worried about those foundations right now. So that's our only motivation. And so, like, what I'm trying to tell you is that, there's a reason. There's a reason why we find ourselves really pushed to our limits of interaction. And really, I'm just trying to say that you need to work on trying to find a way to better those relationships. Now, with the Christian faith is all about foundations too. Now with the Maslow's, it's foundation and it's motivation of individual human. And I think stressing the survival aspect is the most important. The Christian faith also stresses foundations greatly. The biggest one being the foundation of Christ. I'm going to be reading, this is from Matthew 7. Verse 24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. So really, at the bottom level of our Christian life, our Christian really motivation is Jesus. And it's not that he's on the bottom because he's the lowest of importance. In fact, it's the opposite. He's on the bottom because he's the highest of importance. Just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most important thing is having food, having those physiological needs met. And Christ is the same thing. Christ is our foundation. If you try to do ministry, if you try to be involved with the church without having Christ as your motivation, your first motivation, it's really all for naught. And Christ is that rock. Christ is that foundation that we all need to strive for. So what does it look like to have Christ as your foundation? You know, a strong rock, it's something hard, it's something firm, it's something you can always go back to. So when you always need to go back to Christ, you have to know that knowledge of Christ. So having Christ as your foundation really means just understanding his teachings, using them as part of your life daily, and going back to his word so that you can apply it to your life more easily. You're not stumped. You're not learning these stories for the first time anymore. You're allowing them to truly change how you view the world. And then once we have Christ as a foundation, we can go out and be his stewards. We can learn to disciple. We can learn to minister. So just like Maslow's hierarchy needs, the most important part is that base, is that foundation. So before you can begin to do anything with the church, make sure that you have Christ as your foundations. So Gibson United Methodist Church, I challenge you this day that you really analyze looking at your foundation, seeing if there's maybe some holes, maybe some gaps, and maybe you need to fill some mud in. So Gibson United Methodist Church, be blessed this day, this rainy day but beautiful day that God created for us. And I pray that all of you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Go in peace.